Okay, I'm going to finish up here with something that's getting a lot of news, but this is a great example of at Smarter News why we want to proceed cautiously and do things differently than other news sources. So I'm sure over the last several days, you have seen headlines about a certain political story in the United States, which has been whether or not President Trump, former President Trump, will be indicted on Tuesday. Now, why would we even have that question? Why do we have that question? We have that question for a few different reasons. I mean, the background is that President Trump is under investigation in a few different ways. There's the federal investigation into his keeping of records at Mar-a-Lago, government records. We've talked about that regarding the National Archive, how these records were stored, what they were. There's also an investigation into January 6th and his role in that event at the Capitol. There's also an investigation happening in New York on what we believe to be a few different things that had to do with his business dealings in a variety of different ways. Some have concluded and not led to any charges. Well, now there's one that may lead to a charge. The whole reason, though, there's even a question about whether or not President Trump could be arrested this week is because he himself said it. That needs to be very, very, very clear that an entire news cycle is being driven off what the former president said about an investigation that is ongoing. A couple years ago, I was interviewing Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, talks a lot about the Republican Party, the way forward, and what Republicans are generally doing in Congress and outside. Newt Gingrich said to me, "The media will chase a rabbit. All you have to do is give them one." And I remember just thinking to myself, wow, that's a great thing to remember as a journalist, because he's right. Whether it's a leak, it's an unnamed source, it's two people with knowledge of an event, it's a former president. The media will chase something that sounds like a good headline. And we should, but we should never forget to remind our audience about why we're chasing it and why we also have to be skeptical. President Trump may be arrested this week. He could be arrested this week. By the way, he could potentially be arrested at any time if any of these investigations led to an indictment. That's been on the table. That's part of the reason why there's been so much talk about what's going to happen with these investigations, especially as we get more into the presidential cycle for 2024. And he's already announced his run for the presidency, because what we could see is a former president arrested and charged with a crime while also trying to run for president, which is something that we haven't seen before. So, but that could happen at any moment. I mean, that could have happened for any reason if these investigations, if the grand juries at the heart of these investigations decided there was a crime to be charged, if the prosecutors also decided there was enough there to go forward. This particular case that seems to be the one that President Trump is talking about has to do with a 2016 payment to a woman who goes by the name Stormy Daniels, but let's use her real name. Let me see here. I have it written down. I think that's important. You likely know her as Stormy Daniels. Stephanie Clifford is her legal name. And the question here is about money. And about money, it's been referred to as hush money. Money can be paid to someone in exchange for their silence. In certain situations, that's totally illegal. I could sign a contract and I could say, for $100, I've decided I'm not going to share in the inner workings of Smarter News. For example, that's what my secrecy is worth. And in those cases, that's a legal agreement. The question in this particular case seems to be, from what we know of it, which is not laid out before us publicly entirely, is whether or not how the money was exchanged, whether or not it was the accounting records were falsified in any way, where the money came from. So that seems to be at the center of this question about this particular case and President Trump's flair that he threw up, which is that I'm going to be arrested. So the question here is he? We have no idea. Could it happen this week? Could it happen in the next couple weeks? Maybe. Could it not happen at all? Absolutely. So all of these are on the table. And I just want to remind you that they're there, that those possibilities are there.